We were slouched on the couch, a forgettable reality show humming in the background, when I leaned over to kiss Lena goodnight. "Love you," I said out of habit. She didn't answer. She muted the TV, turned to me, and spoke as if filing a status report. "I like you, Nate. I'm not in love with you." The words didn't explode. They landed with the precision of a policy change. I'm a systems analyst. My brain hears inputs, updates the model, and adjusts parameters. New condition affection without commitment. I nodded. "Thanks for being clear. No plea, no bargaining." I stood and went to bed. Later in the dim hallway light, I heard the soft tap of her phone. Friends, probably. The congratulatory buzz of people who applaud honesty from a safe distance. I could already picture the narrative, brave conversation, mature boundaries, same apartment, same comforts, fewer obligations. Lying awake, I traced the implications with the cold logic I use at work. If the relationship has been downgraded, the services attached to it must also be de-scoped, not revenge alignment. Treat Lena as what she says we are, people who like each other and share a home. Somewhere between the ceiling and the glow under the door, a plan assembled itself with quiet certainty: the roommate protocol. The morning after Lena's declaration, I treated the apartment like a shared workspace with a new policy memo taped to the door. I woke at my usual time, didn't lean over for a kiss I was no longer entitled to, and went straight to the kitchen. I brewed enough coffee for 1 mug and filled a travel flask. The empty carafe on the counter looked like a posted notice: services discontinued. When I left, I offered the kind of pleasantry I'd give a colleague passing in a hallway. "Have a good day," and nothing more. The old choreography kiss, "I love you, a quick check if she needed anything," was archived. The first few days, Lena seemed lighter. With no romantic expectations in the background, she acted relieved, as if she had successfully optimized the household for comfort. I kept my tone friendly and practical. I answered direct questions, avoided emotional detours, and kept my calendar visible on the fridge like a logistics board: work gym, meal prep, sleep. Routine, not romance. On Friday afternoon, she texted her friends. Wanted to try a new trattoria. Could I book a table for 8, like I usually did? Planning had always been my domain: finding slots, checking menus, calculating transit time. I replied that I couldn't handle it, and suggested she call the restaurant, because they tended to fill up. She sent back a lone question mark, the textual equivalent of a raised eyebrow. I didn't follow up. I was mid-workout, and that block on my calendar was no longer flexible. The weekend became the formal launch of housemate mode. I ran laundry for my clothes only. The temptation to toss in her sweaters out of habit flickered and went out. We live together. We do not share a wardrobe service. At the store, I bought what I would eat for the week: chicken thighs, rice eggs, fruit, vegetables, coffee, yogurt. No detours into her aisle, no gluten-free bread, no boutique almond milk. None of the snacks that used to appear in our cart, because I wanted to make her day easier. Back home, I sorted groceries onto a couple of shelves I'd cleared for myself and labeled containers for lunches. When she wandered into the kitchen, she looked surprised at the neatness. "Did you go shopping?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, closing a food container. I stuck to my list. "If you want, I can send a photo of the receipt so we can split the shared items: paper towels, dish soap." She blinked. Splitting basics had never been necessary before because I'd just absorbed the cost. That was something the boyfriend did. Housemates split. In the afternoon, she mentioned for the 3rd time in a week that her car had started making a metallic rattle. It was the kind of problem I used to take personally. Pop the hood, text my mechanic, compare quotes, drive her to the shop. Now I sat back in my chair and offered practical advice. Get a couple of estimates before you authorize anything. Look for shops with consistent reviews over time rather than perfect 5-star scores. If you want a starting point, I can send a list of nearby places people recommend. She waited as if there were an unspoken second half where I said, "I'll take it from here." There wasn't. I returned to my screen. The distinction mattered: help as information versus help as labor. Through the week, a silence settled over the apartment that wasn't quite hostile and wasn't warm either. It was procedural. I greeted her when paths crossed, held the door when we hit the hallway at the same time, and wiped the counter after cooking basic civility. I didn't ask about her day. I didn't volunteer details about mine. when conversation would have drifted naturally into old intimacy. I let it dock briefly at logistics and then sail on. Small absences began to stack like receipts in a drawer. No automatic reservation making. No traffic check and text to say, leave now if you want to make it. No extra coffees appearing at her elbow. No last-minute runs to pick up a missing ingredient for a dish she'd thought of 5 minutes earlier. Each omission was minor. Together they redrew the map. I noticed her starting small experiments. She left a stack of mail on the dining table to see if I'd sort it. I sorted mine and slid the rest to her side. She let the trash sit one extra day. I took out the bag I'd filled and tied off and left the other one under the sink. She asked a vague question about weekend plans. I replied with clear bounded blocks. A workout, errands, a call with my brother. Nothing that invited joint planning. None of it was punishment. I kept repeating that to myself the way you might repeat a safety procedure. This is alignment, not anger. She labeled the connection people who like each other and share space. My behavior matched that description faithfully. It turned out that much of what she had enjoyed, my scheduling my quiet financial padding of small costs, my instinct to anticipate had been powered by a very specific fuel. Remove the fuel and the engine should not keep running. One night as I was portioning rice into containers, she hovered by the refrigerator. Do you want anything from the store tomorrow? She asked. Testing a bridge. I'm covered, thanks, I said. If we run low on shared stuff, just add it to the list on the door and we'll split it. The list on the door was new. So were the labeled shelves. So was the absence of automatic favors. This was not austerity. It was accounting. And in the quiet with everything itemized, the shape of what we'd lost became legible even to someone who preferred feelings to spreadsheets. By the end of that week, I could tell she understood at least part of the change. She started to close cabinets softly. She rinsed the blender after using it. She said thank you more as if good manners might rewind the tape. The apartment wasn't colder. It was simply accurate. And accuracy, once you've lived with it, doesn't invite negotiation. 2 weeks into our revised arrangement, Lena's birthday arrived like a calendar alert I acknowledged and dismissed. At dawn, I rolled toward her, saw she was awake, and said, "Happy birthday, Lena. Hope it treats you well." Then I showered, packed my lunch, and left for work. In prior years, that day would have been engineered a stack of reservations, a couriered bouquet, timed to the hour, a dinner reveal held back with cheerful misdirection. This year, I honored the new label she'd chosen. Friends celebrate loudly, housemates offer courteous wishes, and keep moving. Throughout the morning, my phone pulsed with secondhand noise tags, stories a slideshow of glitter captions from people who love the idea of loving someone. The apartment, meanwhile, remained as the protocol had made it ordered quiet legible. When I got home, she hovered in the kitchen, a deliberate casualness in her voice. "Any plans tonight?" she asked, sounding like a neighbor hinting at a surprise. For me, just Jim and the call with my brother, I said. If you want to hang later, we could split a pizza, up to you. The offer was mild, unadorned, and exactly proportional to the relationship she'd articulated. Romance requires fuel. Friendship requires availability. I supplied the latter. She didn't take the pizza. She scrolled her phone on the couch under a blanket of posts from people who claimed to adore her. No one showed up. The living room light dimmed and the day ended without a flourish. The next morning, the vase on the table stood empty, as did the expectation that I might have hidden something somewhere. The financial recalibration, which had been mostly invisible until then, started writing itself in bold. A text came through the following week. "My cell service just got cut. Did your card fall off the account?" It hadn't fallen. I had removed it from the family plan and paid my portion separately. We are not a family. I called my carrier, split the lines, and sent her the number to open her own account. Short, helpful, non-negotiable. Other support she had never tracked began flickering out. Small costs I'd always absorbed because they were really gifts the subscription she used more than I did the rideshare credits. I tossed in on late nights the way I habitually picked up checks because I wanted to. With the power source gone, the machine behaved as physics predicted. It slowed. Lena noticed the slowdown first as the friction. She let a pile of packages accumulate in the foyer. I stacked mine neatly and left hers in place. She played sad playlists at a volume calibrated for sympathy. I put on headphones and continued my spreadsheet. She left the pan in the sink. I washed what I had dirtied, wiped my portion of the counter, and left the pan on a drying rack on her side. Not petulance partitioning. There were experiments with proximity. One night she came home late wearing my old t-shirt, a relic of a time when borrowing felt like belonging. She sat on the edge of the bed, wet-faced and silent for a while. "I miss you," she said finally, more to the room than to me. I closed my book around a finger to mark the page and listen. "It sounds like you're carrying a lot right now," I said evenly. "A neutral person can help make sense of it. If you want names, I can send you a few therapists people recommend." The suggestion was practical and humane. It was also not intimacy. She searched my face for something that wasn't there anymore. The old impulse to solve this by absorbing it. I didn't move. Her eyes flashed, first hurt, then calculation. The next evening, the apartment was a stage set for the emotion she hoped to elicit. Her bag flung open makeup, left out shoes, skewed as if a camera had panned through. I gathered my mail, made dinner, and worked through my stretch routine on the rug. When I finished, I stacked her things neatly on her dresser. A system is hardest to fight when it is consistent. Mine was consistent. I thought often about the difference between information and labor. Information is free. I provide it gladly, the number for the carrier, a map of mechanics with solid reputations, the suggestion to get 2 quotes before authorizing repairs. Labor, in contrast, was the old currency of us. The early morning drive across town so she wouldn't wait for a tow, the discretionary spend that made her days smoother, the anticipatory text that helped her make the curtain. That currency had been pegged to love. She had set its value to 0. The market responded. At work, being a systems analyst is mostly about erasing ambiguity. Name the inputs, define the outputs, track the latency, remove the magic. The longer the roommate protocol ran, the clearer it became that magic had been underwriting a lot. Even silly things, an extra coffee materializing at her elbow, a saved seat at the crowded bar, had been signals on a shared channel. When we moved to public bandwidth, the signals lost their priority. The apartment's soundscape shifted accordingly. It wasn't hostile, no slammed doors, no raised voices. It was procedural. "Good morning. Do you need the oven at 6? We're low on dish tabs. I'll grab them and send you the total." The language of logistics stripped of subtext. The weird thing about accuracy is that it eventually becomes instructional. You learn from the shape of your own day what used to happen invisibly to make it easier. "One rainy Thursday, the power flickered, came back, and Lena laughed at nothing, a brittle little sound." "Do you ever get tired of being like this?" she asked, waving at the tidy kitchen, the labeled jars, the list clipped to the freezer. "Like what I said." "Measured," she said. "Exact." "I get tired of pretending things are something they aren't," I replied. It wasn't a jab, it was a thesis statement. She nodded as if she understood, then pretended she hadn't. That weekend she tried one more lever memory. She suggested we revisit a restaurant we used to love, the place with the crooked frames and the house pasta. "We could go as friends," she said, brightly. I checked my calendar and answered honestly, "I've got plans. Maybe another time." There is a peculiar cruelty in doing what someone asked for with precision. It looks like ice from the outside. From the inside, it feels like integrity. By the end of the month, panic had a sound. Cupboard doors closed too softly. The careful thank you, the glance to see if I noticed the glance. The system was not punishing her. It was simply running. And when a system runs long enough without the inputs that built it, you can finally perceive its architecture. Lena did. She didn't say so. But the recognition was there, reflecting in the glass of the dark kitchen window when she thought I wasn't looking. The lease renewal arrived folded in half like a polite ultimatum. I left it on the kitchen counter where mail goes to become inevitable. For 2 days it sat under a salt shaker, absorbing steam from the kettle and the small weather of our apartment. On the 3rd evening, I came home from the gym and found Lena at the table, elbows on the wood, the document opened flat, as if it might perform a trick if she stared long enough. "We should talk about this," she said, pressing her thumb to the landlord's logo. "Sure," I said, setting my bag down. "What's on your mind?" "Are we going to renew?" Her voice was steady the way a tightrope is steady. "I'm not," I said. Color slid out of her face. "What do you mean you're not?" "I mean, I've already signed a lease for a new place. It's a 1-bedroom closer to my office. Move-in is the first." The sentence landed between us like something carefully measured, not cruel, not apologetic, simply exact. She blinked hard, recalibrating. "So you're leaving me?" she said, and the phrasing sounded like it had been rehearsed in a mirror. "No," I said, genuinely puzzled. "Our living arrangement is ending. Roommates often don't re-sign together when one of them moves. I found a better fit. I assumed you would too." The chair legs squeaked as she stood. "This isn't fair. You're punishing me." I shook my head. "I'm respecting what you told me. You said you like me, that you're not in love with me. I believed you." I adjusted. Her shoulders sagged. The defiance collapsed into bare fear. "I made a mistake. I want things to go back to the way they were." I could have quoted policy or data. Instead, I kept it simple. You want the benefits of a partner planning care? The quiet expenses no one sees without the one condition that made those things feel right, to provide reciprocity. That isn't a relationship, that's a service. I no longer offer that service. She stared at me as if the room had tilted. In the old days, I would have crossed the space between us, softened my stance, negotiated comfort back into the air. The old days were an ecosystem fed by devotion. We had turned off the irrigation months ago. The ground was doing what ground does, cracking. Silence spread until even the refrigerator seemed to hum more carefully. I reached for a small velvet box on the counter, the one that had been delivered that afternoon. Her eyes widened, hope rushing in like a reflex. Even after all of this, she still thought love might step back in and overrule the spreadsheet. I opened the box. Inside was a single silver key on a plain ring. "This is for my new place," I said. "I'm excited about it. There's good light in the morning." The hope in her face extinguished without drama, like a lamp turned the wrong way. She looked down at the lease renewal as if it might reshuffle its clauses into a different future. It didn't. She sat again. "You're really going?" she said. Not a question more, an echo. "In 30 days, I said. Until then, everything functions as it has split. The shared expenses respect the calendar. Keep things clean. After that, you'll have the apartment or you'll have a new one. Either way, you'll have clarity." The word hovered. Clarity had been the whole point, though neither of us had called it that. When she announced the downgrade, she'd wanted a tidy category that let her keep comfort and avoid risk. The roommate protocol had simply taken that category to its logical end. She rubbed her temples. "I thought you'd fight for me," she said softly, as if confessing a superstition. "I fought for us while there was an us," I said. "After the terms changed, fighting would have meant ignoring you." I decided to listen instead. The apartment felt bigger the way rooms feel after you pack a box. I told her I'd draft a short checklist for the move dates. Meter readings, forwarding addresses. Logistics. We're excellent at logistics. "You don't have to be so clinical," she said. "I'm being kind to both of us," I said. Precision is a form of kindness. It ends the guessing. She looked toward the hallway, toward the bedroom where so much of our old life still sat in tidy stacks, pretending to be permanent. "I miss that man," she whispered. "Not to me exactly." "He existed under a condition," I said gently. "You turned that condition off." There wasn't anything else to add. We stood in the same kitchen where we had once practiced easy domesticity, 2 mugs, a shared grocery list, a laugh that came without thinking, and watched the present replace the past in small, unquestionable increments. Later that night, I typed up the checklist and taped it next to the calendar keys, movers. Cleaning day, deposit. I printed a second copy and slid it under the lease renewal. In the reflection on the dark window, I saw her reading lips moving slightly as if saying the items out loud would put them where they belonged. In bed, the apartment settled around us. Pipes, distant traffic, the ordinary mechanical heartbeats of a building. It didn't sound empty yet. It sounded accurate. Accuracy has a different temperature than joy, but you can live in it. You can breathe there. Morning arrived as it always does. I brewed 1 mug of coffee, filled my thermos, and left the carafe clean and waiting for whomever it would serve next. On the way out, I said, "Have a good day," and meant it. 30 days from now, the door would close behind me and the protocol would complete. Not a blaze, not a crash, just the quiet click of something finishing exactly the way it was designed to finish. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.